Ancient Egypt, a civilization shrouded in legends and myths, was among the most powerful empires in human history, so much so that the remnants of this civilization are still being actively studied today, and each new piece of information continues to amaze us. Egypt is a fascinating place that is home to much more than just pyramids. Today we'll delve into the shocking mysteries unearthed by scientists and explore the dusty pages of ancient Egyptian history. Enjoy the journey. The Pyramid of Hawara. Our first stop in the mysterious and awe-inspiring world of ancient Egypt is the Pyramid of Hawara. Built by the 12th dynasty pharaoh Amenemhat III, this pyramid is quite different from the other pyramids in Egypt. Also known as the Black Pyramid, the structure was built with mud brick and covered with limestone, giving it a raw and bold appearance. But this is not the most exciting part of this archaeological site. Beneath the sand surrounding the pyramid lies the Hawara Labyrinth, a complex that could forever change our perceptions of ancient history. Discovered by archaeologists in 2008, this underground structure was described by ancient historians like Herodotus as an extraordinary complex with countless rooms. Considered a legend until its discovery, the mysterious chambers are thought to hold the key to unlocking secrets about unknown civilizations and great empires that ruled the planet before recorded history. The labyrinth is said wanted to have a total of 12 courtyards and 2 types of rooms, one above ground and the other below. Although the upper rooms have been discovered, the underground rooms still remain a mystery. Attempts were made to unravel the secrets of the labyrinth based on descriptions in ancient texts. Truth lying beneath Hawara was not willing to reveal itself easily. Despite all the challenges it poses to researchers, the Pyramid of Hawara and the labyrinth beneath continue to adorn our imagination and keep our curiosity alive. The Unfinished Obelisk. An unfinished masterpiece, hidden in the Aswan quarries for thousands of years, seems to fundamentally change our ideas about the ancient Egyptians and their practices. Made of granite, the unfinished obelisk was intended to be the heaviest single-stone monument ever built by the Egyptians. Unfortunately, the structure was never completed. With 3 sides carved, the work was abandoned, left half attached to the bedrock when the masters discovered a crack in the granite. This enigmatic work of ancient stone masonry has puzzled historians for centuries. How did the Egyptians carve these tall structures from a single block of stone? How did they transport them hundreds of kilometers away? Although various theories have been put forward, none have been able to solve the mystery of the obelisks. When it was said that they transported the obelisks by boat from the Nile, the question arose as to how they got them onto the boats. Moreover, how the boat carried these incredibly heavy stones was another mystery. Some conspiracy theorists have suggested that these were made not by human hands, but extraterrestrial beings. Although the obelisk project was never completed, it provided invaluable information about ancient Egyptian stoneworking techniques. During the research, archaeologists had the opportunity to observe examples of ancient workmanship, thanks to important discoveries such as traces of the tools used and ochre paint lines that helped determine the location of the workers. Although research into the mystery surrounding the work continues, the unfinished obelisk seems to be just the beginning of a great adventure that will last for ages. Valley of the Golden Mummies. In the heart of Egypt's western desert lies the Bahariya Oasis, shrouded in mystery and intrigue. Dr. Zahi Hawass and his team, working in the region, made a discovery that would give even the most experienced archaeologists goosebumps. In a large burial ground known as the Valley of the Golden Mummies, and 250 mummies dating back some 2,000 years were unearthed. But as they went deeper, they realized they had come across something far more significant than they thought. There were over 10,000 mummies in the area in total. The mummies were seen to be decorated in 4 different styles. While the faces of some were covered with a gilded mask, others were covered with papyri depicting scenes of gods and goddesses. That's not all. Each mummy was buried with many artifacts, including jewelry, bracelets, pottery, food trays, wine jugs, and even coins from the Ptolemaic period. Examining the mummies, Zahi Hawass couldn't help but imagine the lives of these people who once lived in Bahariya. It was clear that they were wealthy and could afford beautiful decorations, such as gilding. Also, Because craftsmanship was one of the main professions in Bahariya at that time, workshops were seen everywhere. However, the discovery also left many questions unanswered. As the sun sets over the Bahariya oasis, one can't help but wonder what other secrets lie beneath the sands of this fascinating place. Symbol of brutality. Archaeologists recently made a disturbing and downright terrifying discovery in the Egyptian city of Avaris. The excavation team unearthed 16 human hands buried in 4 separate pits. The strangest aspect of the discovery was that all 16 hands were right hands. According to experts, this was the first concrete evidence of an ancient practice in which soldiers cut off the right hands of their enemies and exchanged them for gold. One hand was discovered in each of the 2 pits, in front of what is thought to be a throne room, while the remaining 14 hands were found in the other 2 pits. It was noticed that the pits, where the 14 hands were found, were dug after the first 2. Dr. Manfred Bietak, director of the excavations at Avaris, said, "Cutting off the right hand of an enemy had a symbolic purpose, such as permanently taking away his strength and power. Also, the right hand was specifically chosen to facilitate the counting of victims. So where did this gruesome tradition come from? Initially, it was thought that this practice was initiated by the Hyksos, who ruled Egypt between the 16th and 17th centuries BC. However, no record of such a practice has been found in northern Canaan, the Hyksos' probable homeland. Therefore, it is unclear whether the Hyksos took this from the Egyptians or vice versa, or whether it originated from somewhere else entirely. Whatever it may be, the discovery of the hands was certainly chilling. Physical evidence of a practice seen in ancient Egyptian inscriptions and art. These hands were cut off in order to incapacitate enemies. Even this brief glimpse into the dark chambers of the ancient world once again reminded us of the horrific realities of war and how far people can go to gain power and control. A dreamlike discovery. In 2022, archaeologists working at a site in Cairo, Egypt, experienced the joy of making a dreamlike discovery. Beneath the city's hot sands, inside a burial chamber, was a sarcophagus standing intact. Untouched for many years, this impressive sarcophagus was of enormous size and covered with inscriptions dedicated to Ptah Mwiya, who managed the treasury of one of Egypt's greatest rulers, King Ramses II. Reaching the sarcophagus was quite difficult. To reach the bottom of the burial chamber, archaeologists had to remove large amounts of sand by attaching a bucket to a hand-operated rope hoist. Heavy machinery was not used as it could damage the sarcophagus. Meticulously clearing the debris, the team was rewarded with a remarkably well-preserved sarcophagus. Although not a pharaoh, the owner of the tomb, Ptah Mwiya, played an important role during the reign of King Ramses II. Not only was he in charge of the royal treasury, but he was also a scribe, overseer of cattle, and in charge of the sacrifices offered to the gods at the king's temple in Thebes. Although the sarcophagus was largely intact, archaeologists noticed that the burial chamber had been looted in the 19th century. This explained why no valuables were found inside the chamber. Although Ptah Mwiya was a respected figure in ancient Egypt, little has been learned about this popular scribe to date. Still, given how important a person he was, it is predicted that more will be revealed about his life and duties in the coming days. Crocodile heads. Recently, archaeologists discovered 9 crocodile heads buried in the Theban necropolis, an ancient cemetery site in Upper Egypt. The remains of the animals were found inside 2 tombs bearing the names of high-ranking officials who lived during the New Kingdom period, between the 16th and 11th centuries BC. The discovery was considered the only one of its kind, as no other crocodile heads have been found in human graves to date. In ancient Egypt, crocodiles were usually mummified and kept in sacred animal graves. Reptiles were important to the Egyptian people because they were associated with the god Sobek. Sobek was known as the creator god of the Nile River, as well as the god of fertility, chaos, and military power. But this time, only the head of the animal was placed next to the deceased, instead of the whole body. Moreover, there was no form of preservation, such as mummification. Apparently, the crocodile heads were simply placed inside the burial chamber, and no other preparations were made. Archaeologists will continue to work to unravel the mystery of the find. Dog necropolis. In January, archaeologists announced that they had made an incredible discovery. While excavating at a site near Cairo, they came across the remains of an 8-year-old child and the remains of 142 dogs around the child. The remains mostly belonged to puppies. Archaeologists have not been able to find any answers as to why the ancient Egyptians performed this strange burial procedure. Even more bizarre was that a linen bag had been placed over the child's head. Researchers have theorized that the burial may have been part of an ancient ritual. Traces of blue clay were found on the remains of the dogs. This substance was a common material found in reservoirs in ancient Egypt. As no signs of violence were found on the dogs, it was estimated that they may have been victims of a flood disaster. However, it was also thought that the dogs may have been used for magic, but the role of the child could not be deciphered. There was also the possibility that the little boy was feeding the animals and died with them. Of course, the linen bag on the child's head was not an element to be overlooked. Archaeologists have so far discovered only one other human with a linen bag on his head. That too belonged to a man with an arrow stuck in his chest. This practice seemed to be reserved for people who had been executed, but it was unlikely that this child deserved such an end. Perhaps a hitherto unknown form of burial will emerge. Who knows? The mystery of the baboon. In the annals of ancient Egypt, there is a magical, distant land where brave adventurers can obtain gold, resin, and all kinds of riches. This is known as the Kingdom of Punt, or the Land of God. Although this kingdom rivaled the riches of ancient Egypt, it is quite strange that its name is mentioned so little in historical records. All we know is that the Egyptians first began traveling to Punt 4,500 years ago. According to written records, they continued to do so for over 1,000 years. The ancient Egyptians brought resins, metals, hardwoods, and exotic animals from this kingdom. Still, archaeologists have noted that more evidence is needed about these goods and where they came from. Initially, there were even theories that the kingdom of Punt might not be real, but the discovery of a baboon's skull in the 19th century, archaeologists discovered the skull of a hamadryas baboon in the ancient Egyptian city of Thebes. At that time, this species was considered the embodiment of Thoth, the god of wisdom. Creatures, baboons were not native to Egypt. Therefore, researchers examined the chemical isotopes in the tooth enamel to determine the animal's origin and obtained clues about its birthplace. Thanks to this study, it was determined that the baboon was born somewhere between East Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. This indicated that the legendary kingdom of Punt may have been established around modern Eritrea, Ethiopia, or northwest Somalia. The tooth that solved a decades-old riddle. Hatshepsut was among Egypt's leading rulers. The daughter of Thutmose I, she was also the wife of her half-brother, Thutmose II. When her husband died, she became co-ruler with her young son, Thutmose III. Although she seemed quite content to be a supporting figure alongside the powerful men in her family, when her son finally came of age to ascend the throne, she made a bold move and declared herself pharaoh. Despite being a woman, she adopted the symbols and titles associated with the ruler of Egypt. Instead of the hats and accessories used by women, she began to dress like men. In the paintings she had made, she ordered to be depicted with a male body and beard. Although she managed to change her appearance more or less, she could not escape the limitations faced by female rulers at that time. Unlike her father and deceased husband, she could not lead her troops into battle. So she decided to use her intelligence and cunning. She ordered her soldiers to embark on a trade expedition to the land of Punt, a legendary kingdom filled with various riches, from gold to exotic animals. Hatshepsut reigned for a full 21 years. Although declaring her pharaohship was a radical move at the time, Egypt knew peace and prosperity under her guidance. When her son, Thutmose III, finally ascended the throne, he tried to erase his mother's legacy from the historical records. The monuments she had built were destroyed, and the name Hatshepsut was removed from the list of kings. Like all secrets, this one came to light, even if it was thousands of years later. In 1822, archaeologists discovered an inscription mentioning Hatshepsut's name, and after deciphering the hieroglyphs, the whole world heard the story of the magnificent ruler. In 1902, the British archaeologist who discovered the tomb of King Tutankhamun found Hatshepsut's tomb in the Valley of the Kings, but the sarcophagus was empty. Then, he found another sarcophagus containing 2 mummies. While it was learned that one of the mummies was Hatshepsut's wet nurse, the identity of the other mummy could not be determined. Years later, Dr. Zahi Hawass restarted the search. Extensive work in the tomb Carter found, and in Hatshepsut's mortuary temple, but the famous ruler was nowhere to be found. Eventually, it turned out that Hatshepsut was buried in a completely different place. Thanks to a tooth in the empty sarcophagus Carter found, it's confirmed that Hatshepsut was buried next to her wet nurse. The mystery was solved, but it was understood that the legendary pharaoh was quite different from how she was depicted. Scientists examining Hatshepsut's mummified remains concluded that the ruler died in her 50s and suffered from obesity. Analyses on her body revealed that diabetes and liver cancer may have caused her death. However, no matter what Hatshepsut looked like in life, she was undoubtedly one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs. Discoveries in Egypt open a window to the past, allowing us to better understand the history and culture of one of the most fascinating civilizations in human history. Every discovery, from pyramids to mummies, from gods to animals, reveals new information about the lives of the ancient Egyptians. Which of these discoveries interested you the most? What do you think about the unsolved ancient mysteries? You can share your thoughts with us in the comments. Thank you for your time. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.